and there's a lot on the news about supply chains, and it's becoming, I think, the most, next to inflation, the most worried thing for consumers. So
Broadly speaking, the things we hear that are impacting companies, most of them fall into one of these three buckets. So the first is labor shortages. We've talked about this ad nauseum. The second is port congestion or shipping issues. Big container ships just stranded off the port of LA, just waiting for a berth, wreaking havoc. And then even if they were to get a berth, there's nobody there to unload.
yeah,
And then even if there was someone there to unload, there's no one there to drive the goods to the warehouse. And even if they could, there's nobody working at the warehouse, right? So it's just massive issues. And then the final thing is chip shortages. Chips are in everything. The number of chips in an automobile has risen almost exponentially over the past 10 years. So everybody needs chips. So these are the big items. And we're going to be living with these problems for quite a while. But we think if you dive into each one of these items and think, what are the factors that are impacting them? There's reason to believe that over the next 3, 6, 12 months, they probably won't get resolved, but they may stop getting worse and start getting better, is the hope. Starting with the labor shortage, the first are virus concerns. So a huge number of people are out of the labor force just because they have fear of contracting COVID. Or they don't want to spread COVID, or they have to stay home to care for elderly or care for children, all those things. And
right.
As we make progress, we go back to the case count slide, as cases continue to fall, vaccinations continue to rise, schools reopen, some people should start to feel comfortable coming back into the labor force, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that should be getting better at the same time that unemployment insurance benefits are expiring. So now there's a catalyst. Hopefully you're feeling better about coming back into the labor force at the same time your unemployment insurance are expiring and wages are increasing. So hopefully these things all come together and you start to see some progress where people come back into the labor force.
Yeah, and companies are very supportive. We've seen a number of companies sort of delay their return to office requirements till first quarter next year. But also, a lot of employers are now embracing the work from home idea for some or all of their workforce for differing time periods, which is also supportive of giving people the ability to come back to work in a less stressful environment.
Yep, definitely. And that flexibility, that's also very supportive of the last item we see here, record levels of quits. Because folks will say, well, previously a job at a company headquartered in Nevada wasn't available to me, but now this company is flexible to allow me to work from anywhere. And so now my job prospects opened up much beyond just where I'm actually physically located, right? And so we've seen record quit rates. Now, once again, we're not saying that people are going to stop quitting their jobs, but there is a point of quit burnout, if you will, where everybody who is going to shift their career has shifted their career, and hopefully we get towards a more normalized quit rate. That would be great for companies as well who are struggling, once they do find somebody, to just keep them in that position. So hopefully that starts to come down as well.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to port congestion. Lots of stories here that
yeah,
you read about.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest thing is just the shift from goods to services. It's most likely not going to be resolved in the near term by increased investment in port capacity. It's probably not going to be solved by more container ships. It's not even going to be solved by 24/7 unloading, because even if you get people to unload these things, somebody has to drive them and there are labor shortages and so on. So the way this is going to get better, most likely, first is the shift from goods to services. That'll be the thing. People just need to buy less stuff. And they bought record amounts of stuff. So you can pretty easily say that, well, people probably buy less stuff than they did last year. And another big reason for that is the fading fiscal stimulus. Think about the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, the stimulus checks. As those are behind us and consumers start to spend down those savings, hopefully, once again, they'll be buying fewer goods. Right. And the last thing are seasonal factors. once we get through the holiday season in the US and then the Chinese New Year and you come out into February 2022, if we get a typical seasonal pullback in demand for goods that we would normally see, we actually have made enough progress at ports that we should be able to clear the congestion next spring without any other changes in the situation. Just the seasonal pullback should be enough with how we're operating currently at ports to clear the congestion. So that will all be great. The other thing here, which is, it's for all of these, and it goes into chip shortage as well, is these zero COVID policies in Southeastern Asia, where ports might not be shutting here, but they're shutting across the world.
Yeah.
Because we want zero COVID cases. As those policies basically start to expire and are no longer tenable, hopefully that'll help clear some congestion as well.
Yeah, very good point there.
Yeah.
And just to the chip shortage category, chips, as you said earlier, are they're in almost every product now, and the demand continues. What is the long-term solution for chip shortage?
Yeah, the long-term solution is we need to increase our productive capacity for semiconductor chips. The problem with that is these are not short-term investments. Even if you said today, I'm going to open a new foundry, you might not turn out an actual semiconductor chip from that foundry for 2 to 3 years. And once again, we're dealing with all these other problems. Who's going to build it? Who's going to build the foundry, right? So that's the long-term solution. The good thing is this chip shortage, we've been dealing with this for a while, and a lot of companies had already kicked off investments in increasing productive capacity, last year and even in 2019. And so a lot of those investments will start to actually materialize into chips being produced. So that long-term solution, that should start to bear fruits probably second half of next year. That's all the estimates we see, where, okay, we're actually going to increase capacity, global chip production capacity. And between now and then, all we can hope for is that we can just maximize current productive capacity. So globally, we could have produced more chips over the past year than we did. And most of the reason that shortfall was because of things like these zero COVID policies, where factories and foundries are shut down because of things like natural disasters, extreme weather, things like that. And so if we can just remove those negatives, keep the current foundries open, produce as much as is possible right now, that's going to help out between now and second half of next year. And then second half of next year, that's when, okay, we actually have more production.
Yeah. Yeah, another really bullish, if you look at these things, these are definitely bullish factors. Like you said, if all these things weren't problems now, we'd probably have much higher corporate earnings and higher GDP. So as we think we've hit the peaks in all these, super supportive going into next year. So
Exactly. The news cycle calls the peak, right? Markets look for improvement.
Yep.
And I think that's probably where we're at.
Yeah, it's great point.